Iran says that Israel will pay for the assassination of Hamas's top political leader Ismail Haniyeh. He was killed in an airstrike in Tehran. Thousands have gathered in the Iranian capital for a funeral honoring the leader of the Palestinian Party and militant group Hamas. He was also the chief negotiator in talks aimed at reaching a ceasefire with Israel. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei spoke at the ceremony. Iran holds Israel responsible for the killing and has said that they will make Israel regret the move. In Tel Aviv, the Israeli War Cabinet met to discuss rising tensions. Israel has not confirmed or denied that it was behind the attack that killed Haniyeh, but it did announce that it was responsible for an airstrike on a suburb of Beirut that killed a Hezbollah commander. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sought to reassure Israelis that the country is ready to face down threats from both Iran and Lebanon's Hezbollah.
There are challenging days ahead of us. Since the attack in Beirut, threats have been heard from all sides. We are prepared for any scenario and we will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a heavy price for any aggression against us on any front.
DW's Rebecca Ritters is following developments from Jerusalem. I asked her how worried people are about retaliation from Iran.
Well, that's right. That is reporting coming from the New York Times to say that Ayatollah Khamenei has ordered a direct attack. They've certainly said publicly that they will be responding and retaliating, as you've just been reporting, against what they see as an Israeli attack. Of course, Israel haven't claimed responsibility publicly, although Benjamin Netanyahu did hint at it last night in his address to the nation, saying that Israel had handed a devastating blow to Iran's proxies in the plural. Because let's not forget, we're talking about 2 assassinations in less than a 24-hour period. One just hours before the Ismail Haniyeh assassination in Iran. One of the key commanders of the Hezbollah group was killed in Beirut, and Israel did claim responsibility for that attack. So Iran certainly saying that they will come out in defence. And, you know, it's hardly surprising. This was a very embarrassing blow for Iran that, let's say, Israel or that an assassination was able to take place inside on their sovereign soil. So they have little choice but to retaliate. Now, whether or not they do it on sovereign Israeli soil, of course, remains to be seen. There has been precedent of that. We saw that happen for the first time in April when Iran retaliated to another assassination that they believe Israel carried out, and they sent hundreds of missiles and drones into Israeli airspace. Most, of course, were shot out by Israel and its allies. But there is certainly precedent for that, and we'll just have to see how big an attack Iran are prepared to give Israel. But we're talking also, there are people talking about a 3-fronted or multi-fronted attack where all of Iran's proxies may coordinate, including the Houthis from Yemen and Hezbollah and Hamas as well. So we'll just have to see how big it is, and then, of course, what that means in terms of a wider conflict in the region.
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was involved in the negotiations with Israel on a ceasefire in Gaza and the return of the hostages. What does his death mean for these efforts?
Well, Ismail Haniyeh was not just involved, he was really the chief negotiator, if you will. He was really the person in Hamas who had the strongest voice in terms of negotiating some kind of ceasefire. His death will certainly bring a blow to those negotiations, and that's what many people are saying, that he was considered the more moderate voice within Hamas, if you will, certainly when you compare him to Yahya Sinwar in Gaza, and that he was almost pushing or certainly more open to some kind of a ceasefire deal. Now, the Qatari and Egyptians, who have been very key negotiators in these ceasefire agreements, say that the killings will certainly be a blow to any deal, that there was a deal that Israel had sent back to Hamas after negotiations in Rome on Monday, and they were waiting for a Hamas response. Hamas themselves saying that they were very, very close to reaching some kind of agreement, though we don't know how close. But obviously this is going to deal a blow, and the Qatari Prime Minister yesterday taking to the social media platform X to question how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates negotiators on the other side. So quite a wry response, but certainly underlining what many people are feeling about the negotiations now.
We'll leave it there for the moment. DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters in Jerusalem. Thanks so much. And let's bring in journalist Hazem Balousha, who spent a lot of time in Gaza before he had to leave. He joins us now from Cairo. Hazem, what has the reaction been to Haniyeh's killing in Gaza and the West Bank?
The most important part for Gaza is particularly is to end the war and to have an end of all daily basis suffering. After more than 9 months in such situation, all they care about is ending this war, and the reaction came as a result of that. The assassination of Haniyeh might delay or postpone reaching a deal. In the West Bank, it's a bit different. There is a bit of grief. They are not in direct impact of the situation, what's happening in Gaza. Of course, there is an impact of blockade and pressure from Israeli army, but the situation and the impact is in Gaza.
How big a blow is this for Hamas?
It is big, no doubt about that. Hamas officials said that out loud. Haniyeh was the top leader of Hamas, but it's good to mention that he's not the top influential person. I mean, if we talk about the situation and the war in Gaza, the military wing is the most powerful part or body that influence the war in Gaza currently. But it would be a political problem for Hamas, and it will be a debate over who's going to replace him.
So who is going to replace him?
Well, according to the Hamas law, Haniyeh got 3 deputies. One of them already killed. One in Gaza City is Yahya Sinwar, who's not available and he's underground. He's busy with the war. The second one is the Saleh al-Aruri, who was killed in Beirut earlier. The third one is Khalid Mash'al, who's in Doha and who's the former top leader of Hamas before Haniyeh. So according to the law, one of the 3 deputies should take the place, but that is not necessarily. Maybe some changes would happen because many other parties would influence that. I mean, the hosting country like Qatar, Iran, the supporting country, would influence if they are in favor of Khalid Mash'al or not. Other parties like Egypt or other Arab countries who is interested of the Palestinian issue. So it's not crystal clear about that who's going to replace him, but according to the law, most likely will be Khalid Mash'al.
Where would that leave ceasefire negotiations then between Hamas and Israel?
Well, the negotiations is in already before the killing of Ismail Haniyeh was in hard position and was in deadlock somehow. There was no agreement between both sides, Hamas and Israel. But of course, the assassination of Haniyeh would make it more complicated. I would expect that the negotiation would be postponed for some time, as it happened before when Saleh al-Aruri, the deputy, was assassinated in Beirut before, but it would be resumed eventually. But the question is like how and when, and if the 2 parties are ready for reaching a deal. So that is the most important. So the negotiation now is in hold, of course, for some time, but it's not the end. It would be resumed because there is no other option.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Journalist Hazem Balousha in Cairo. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Iran has vowed to take revenge for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. The assassination was a massive security breach and a huge embarrassment for Iran's leaders. Any retaliation could come in several different forms.
What could a response from Iran look like? And how far does Tehran really want to go? Tensions in the Middle East were already high after Israel's assassination of Hezbollah's top commander, Fouad Shukur, in Beirut. Both incidents have intensified calls by Israel's enemies for retribution. But experts say Iran's leaders want to avoid a war with Israel, and an outright attack seems highly unlikely. Backed by the United States, Israel has formidable resources at the ready, including an army of some 170,000 active duty soldiers. It also has an advanced air force with some 200 fighter jets, plus the well-tested Iron Dome rocket defense system. Iran could also ask its proxies in the region to step up their activities. Hezbollah could launch a massive barrage of missiles at Israel from Lebanon, similar to the one Iran launched in April. That unprecedented attack of some 300 missiles and drones was largely repelled, but some managed to penetrate the Iron Dome system, causing damage inside the country. Last year, US intelligence estimated that Hezbollah has over 100,000 rockets at their ready. Hezbollah could also carry out a strike on civilian targets within Israeli territory. This is a much less likely possibility, but a much more serious one. An attack of this kind would almost definitely lead to an even further escalation. But Iran's retaliation won't necessarily happen on Israeli soil. Aside from Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran backs a number of allied militant groups across the Middle East, in Iraq, Syria, Gaza, and in Yemen. Tehran is now already encouraging the Islamic resistance in Iraq, a coalition of militias, to step up its attacks on US targets there after months of calm. And in the Red Sea, Yemen's Houthi rebels have been carrying out attacks on ships it claims are linked to Israel since the beginning of the Gaza conflict. The assassination of Ismail Haniyeh puts Iran in a difficult position. How to respond in a way which shows strength and restores deterrence, but at the same time avoids an all-out war with its sworn enemy, Israel.
And let's get more on this from DW's Middle East analyst, Shani Rozanes, who joins me now in the studio. Shani, good morning. What will be the main goal of any Iranian response?
Well, of course, they need to show strength. They want to build deterrence against Israel because this seems like an abashed, attempt of Israel to on Iranian soil, on Iranian sovereignty. So, of course, they would want to do that. They want to show that they're strong. They cannot keep, face to the world, especially wanting to be seen as the strong, fighters for the Palestinian cause. They need to show that they vent the blood of Haniyeh and also don't let Israel tread all over their, sovereignty. And this is exactly how you do that. How do you strike this balance? Because so far, Iran has tried, despite, its strong alienation with the Palestinians and the support to the Palestinian cause through Hamas, it also tried to distance itself in a way not to be directly involved. And now it will try to strike a balance of how to send that message without bringing to a wider escalation.
And what about Hezbollah? Can one expect a response from the group? And if so, what sort of a response should one expect?
Well, I think in a way there's a bit of a relief for Hassan Nasrallah. He will be speaking later today. We will hear what exactly he wants to say following Fouad Shukur's assassination. But knowing that this is a bigger problem and now the spotlight is on, the backers, the Iranians, of course, that helps him get more time to get his, response in order. But it's no doubt in Israel, there's far more concern about the northern border. That means the response from Hezbollah than from Iran. Mostly because it's just much shorter time and much shorter distance. Israel has very little time to respond to any attacks from Hezbollah. Hezbollah is considered to be the best armed proxy Iran has in the region with over 150,000, missiles in different ranges. So when Hezbollah decides to attack, it can be very deadly. Well, what we've seen from Iran in April is that Israel had much longer time to respond, and eventually also the attack was more than 99% of the barrage was, Israel managed to stop.
We're talking about expected attacks and responses from Iran and also Hezbollah potentially at the same time. I mean, whatever these responses are, will it prevent an all-out escalation into a wider regional war?
Oh, it's yet to be seen. We need to see exactly what happens on the ground. And we also need to keep in mind, if we rewind a bit, partially why we're here is because there was an attack on the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights that killed 12 kids in a soccer field. And this is probably a mistake. And this is what happens when you engage in war. You know, you can plan what you want, but you don't always control the result. And Israel has this rule that it responds according to the result, not according to the intention. This is why we've seen also a very tame response to the previous attack from Iran in April. So yes, it could be that all sides do not want to see escalation, but only want to show deterrence and, you know, keep this game of balancing reactions. But a mistake could happen, and that could maybe lead to an escalation, taking things out of hand.
Shani, stay with us. Just to remind our viewers, the visuals that they're seeing on their screens right now are live visuals coming from Tehran. This is the funeral procession of Ismail Haniyeh, the top political leader of Hamas. That's happening right now in Tehran. And as we were talking, Shani, we were talking about de-escalation. There are now many calls for de-escalation, including from Germany. DW's chief political editor, Michaela Küfner, spoke with Defense Minister Boris Pistorius about that.
Currently, there's a huge concern that there could be an all-out war in the Middle East after the Hamas leader was killed in Iran, Mr. Haniyeh, but also a leading member of Hezbollah. Your American counterpart, Lloyd Austin, says that a war can be prevented. What is your assessment at this moment?
Well, of course, Lloyd Austin is right. It can be prevented, but it has to be. It needs to be prevented because nobody can wish or can even imagine a further escalation in the region. We don't need that. We don't want that, and we have to try everything to make influence available to all actors in the region, not to escalate, and pay attention to de-escalation and to do everything for getting peace back in that region as soon as possible.
What does this mean for German weapons deliveries, weapons commitment towards Israel, but also for Germany's participation of UNIFIL on the Lebanese border?
UNIFIL is not touched at the moment. We continue, we proceed with our engagement over there. Of course, we assume the situation every day, every hour, but we'll stay there and we won't make only national decisions over there.
That was the German defense minister there speaking earlier to DW. Shani, who can in effect exert any influence in the current situation to prevent further escalation in the region?
Well, we talk about Israel is definitely the Americans. That's where you have most of the leverage. And, you know, we were just hearing the German defense minister. Germany and America by far more, are the main suppliers of weapons and for Israel. You know, they have a lot of leverage they can use there. And we've been seeing a lot of efforts from Europe and the US. When it comes to Lebanon, there's a very great fear that any confrontation that will lead to direct attack on Lebanon is just going to be too devastating for this already frail country. So this is where the focus is on. But when it comes to Iran, I think it's very hard to know who can even, you know, exert any leverage there. I think it's, you know, I think what Israelis were counting on when they initiated this was the assumption that that Iran, as a rational player, will have zero interest in actually an all-out war and a wide escalation. We will have to wait a little longer to see if that assumption is in any way correct.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Shani, Rozanes, thanks so much for coming into the studio for that.